It's so cold out, isn't it? Can you believe? Can you even believe that the weather got so cold so quick? Frick. Don't worry. We've got the fire going and hopefully we can keep warm a little. I know you said that it was kind of psychotic to go camping, but I feel like it's super cozy. No? Yeah, give me your hands. That feels better, right? Oh my god. It's like you're made of ice. You're so silly. Yeah, get over here. God, it's so cold out. Yeah, just get close to the fire. Did you bring a scarf or anything? What do you mean, no? Yeah. Good thing I bought extra. What would you do without me, huh? Well, it's not entirely a blizzard, I guess, but the rate of snow is pretty crazy. layer up, you know. You can't just be all trying to fight the weather like this. You're not gonna win, you know. You can't win against literal Mother Nature. Silly goose. Yeah, lucky for you, I did bring an extra scarf. I just knew you'd pull some sort of stunt like this. Thinking you can take on the world. You're sitting there shivering, refusing to admit that you're cold. Don't worry, I'm warm enough. The fire is super cozy. There's just something about the crackling of the wood, the warmth from the flames. The heat warming my little toes. Something about it is just so comforting, you know. Way better than anything you'd get if you camped during summer. And plus, the campsite is super empty. Big plus when you're camping outside when there's a literal snowstorm. It's cozy, isn't it? Just us and the elements. Blanket too. Move your little feet. Okay. Isn't that warm? It's all fluffy on the inside. Of course I'm prepared, you silly goose. One of us has to be. What did you bring? Okay, you brought beer and snacks. it on you. Now, if there's ever a snowstorm, I can just drink and at least my belly will feel warm. Okay, you bought some hot chocolate too. You do owe me some later. I'll hold you to that. It's nice, huh? Something about being outside when you probably shouldn't be. I honestly feel like the wind is the nastiest part of it. The cold is okay, but God, the wind will really make your skin dry out. Feels like it's stealing the heat away right off my face. The wind's a scary guy. I wonder why they've always called it nippy out. I love sitting super close to the fire. We're gonna have to get some more firewood later. I mean, the guy at reception definitely gave us a really nice amount of firewood, but I think with the way we're going through this, we might have to go back and get some more later. Ooh, but I'm so cozy. It feels like I'm being enveloped in warmth. Yeah, I feel like it always gets so cold, so fast. We even put up these little lights. Makes it feel a little festive, don't you think? Something about the cold always makes me think of the holidays. Just the season and stuff. you getting sleepy? You look like you're getting sleepy. You don't have to. Force yourself to stay awake. It's okay. I'll take care of the fire. Just lie down. Let your eyes close. Actually, I brought some books to read. I can read you something to help you doze off. I know you always liked it when I read you to sleep. How's that sound? With the wind and the warmth of the fire and your little toes all cuddled up under the blanket. Doesn't that sound nice? I actually got this book recently. It's a book that I wanted to read to my kids at school. It's Celtic fairy tales. Maybe that's a little juvenile, but I thought, hey, might as well practice on somebody, right? And the book has got gorgeously illustrated pictures for the kids too. Which one shall we read first? Ooh. Let's read about something from the sea, shall we? The Seal Catcher and the Selkies. Chapter 16. The Seal Catcher and the Selkies, a tale from Scotland. Once upon a time, there was a man who lived not far from the very north of Scotland. He dwelled in a little cottage by the seashore and made his living by catching seals and selling their fur. He earned a good deal of money in this way, for these creatures used to come out of the sea in large numbers and lie on the rocks near his house, basking in the sunshine, so that it was not difficult to creep up behind them and kill them. Some of these seals were larger than others, and the country people used to call them selkies. and whisper that they were not seals at all, but mermen and merwomen who came from a country of their own, far, far down. Thank you. Look at you. You're getting cozy already. You're welcome, dear. I can read to you at any time. We're not seals at all, but mermen and merwomen who came from a country of their own, far down under the ocean, and who assumed this strange disguise in order to pass through the ocean and come up to breathe the air of this earth of ours. But the seal catcher only laughed and said that those seals were the ones most worth killing, for their skins were so big that he got an extra price for most of them. Now, it chanced that one day, as he crept up to and stabbed one of these particularly large seals with his hunting knife, the creature gave a loud cry of pain and slipped off the rock into the sea. It disappeared under the water, carrying the knife along with it. The seal catcher, much annoyed at his own clumsiness and also at the loss of his knife, went home to dinner in a very downcast frame of mind. On his way he met a horseman who was so tall and strange looking, and who rode on such a gigantic horse that the seal catcher stopped and looked at him in astonishment, wondering who he was and what country he came from. The stranger stopped as well and asked him for his trade. On hearing that he was a seal catcher, he immediately ordered a great number of seal skins. And the seal catcher was delighted, for such an order meant a large sum of money to him. But his face fell when the horseman added that it was absolutely necessary that the skin should be delivered that evening. I cannot do it, said the seal catcher in a disappointed voice, for the seals will not come back to the rocks again until tomorrow morning. I can take you to a place where there are any number of seals, answered the stranger, if you will mount behind me on my horse and come with me. The seal catcher agreed to this and climbed up behind the rider. Then the rider shook his bridle rein, and off the great horse galloped at such a pace that the seal catcher had much ado to keep his seat. On and on they went, flying like the wind, until at last they came to the edge of a huge precipice, the face of which went sheer down to the sea. Here the mysterious horseman pulled up his steed with a jerk. "Get off now," he said shortly. The seal catcher did as he was bid, and when he found himself safe on the ground, he peeped cautiously over the edge of this cliff. To his astonishment, he saw no rocks, only the blue sea, which came right to the foot of the cliff. Where are the seals that you spoke of?" he asked anxiously, wishing that he'd never set out on such a rash adventure. "You'll see presently," answered the stranger, who was attending to his horse's bridle. The sea catcher was now thoroughly frightened, for he felt sure that some evil was about to befall him. And in such a lonely place, he felt that it would be useless to cry for help, and it seemed as if his fears would prove only too true, for the next moment the stranger's hand was laid upon his shoulder, and he felt himself being hurled bodily over the cliff. Then he fell with a splash into the sea. He thought that his last hour had come, but he wondered how anyone could work such a deed of wrong upon an innocent man. But to his astonishment, he found that some change must have passed over him, for instead of being choked by the water, he could breathe quite easily. He and his companion, who was still close at his side, seemed to be sinking as quickly down through the sea as they had flown through the air. Down and down they went. He couldn't tell how far, until at last they came to a huge arched door, which appeared to be made of pink coral studded over with cockle shells. It opened of its own accord, and when they entered, they found themselves in a huge hall, the walls of which were formed of mother of pearl, and the floor of which was made of sea sand, smooth, firm, and yellow. The hall was crowded with occupants, but they were seals, not men. And when the seal catcher turned to his companion to ask him what it all meant, he was aghast to find that the rider too had assumed the form of a seal. He was still more aghast when he caught sight of himself in a large mirror that hung on the wall, and saw that he no longer bore the likeness of a man, and was transformed into a nice, hairy, brown seal. "Oh, woe to me," he said to himself. "For no fault of my own, this artful stranger has laid some baneful charm upon me, and in this awful guise will I remain for the rest of my natural life." At first, none of the large creatures spoke to him. For some reason or other, they seemed to be very sad. They moved gently about the hall, talking quietly and mournfully to one another, or lay sadly upon the sandy floor, wiping big tears from their eyes, from their soft, furry fins. But presently they began to notice him and to whisper to each other. Then his guide moved away and disappeared through a door at the end of the hall. When he returned, he held a huge knife in his hand. At the sight of the knife, he fell upon his face and begged for mercy, for he at once came to the conclusion that the inhabitants of the cavern, enraged at the harm which had been wrought upon their comrade, had contrived to capture him and bring him to their subterranean abode in order to wreak their revenge upon him by killing him. But instead of doing so, they crowded around him, rubbing their soft noses against his fur to show their sympathy, and implored him not to put himself about, for no harm would befall him, and they would love him all their long lives long if he would only do what they asked him. "Tell me what it is," asked the seal catcher. "I will do it if it lies within my power." "Follow me," answered the guide, and he led the way to the door through which he had disappeared when he went to seek the knife. The seal catcher followed him, and there, in a smaller room, he found a great brown seal lying on a patch of pink seaweed with a gaping wound in his side. "That is my father," said his guide, "whom you wounded this morning, thinking he was one of the common seals who live in the sea, instead of a merman who has speech and understanding as you mortals have. I have brought you hither to bind up his wounds, for no other hand than yours can heal him." I have no skill in the art of healing," said the seal catcher, astonished at the forbearance of these strange creatures whom he had so unwittingly wronged. "But I will bind up his wound to the best of my power, and I am only sorry that it was my hand that caused it." He went over to the bed and, stooping over the wounded seal, washed and dressed the hurt as well as he could, and the touch of his hands appeared to work like magic, for no sooner had he finished than the wound seemed to deaden and die, leaving only a scar, and the old seal sprang up as well as ever. Then there was a great rejoicing throughout the whole palace of seals. They laughed, and they talked, and they embraced each other in their own strange ways, crowding around their comrade and rubbing their noses against his, as if to show how delighted they were at his recovery. But all this while the seal catcher stood alone in a corner, his mind filled with dark thoughts, for although he saw now that they had no intention of killing him, he did not relish the prospect of spending the rest of his life in the guise of a seal, fathoms deep under the ocean. But presently his guide approached him and said, "Now you are at liberty to return home to your wife and children. I will take you to them, but only on one condition." And what is that?" asked the seal catcher eagerly, overjoyed at the prospect being restored safely to the upper world and to his family again.
That you will take a solemn oath never to wound a seal again.
That will I do right gladly, he replied, for although the promise meant giving up his means of livelihood, he felt that if only he regained his proper shape, he could always turn his hand to something else. So he took the required oath with all due solemnity, holding up his little fin as he swore, and all the seals crowded him as a witness, and a sigh of relief went through the halls when the words were spoken, for he was the most noted seal catcher in the north of Scotland. Then he bade the strange company farewell, and accompanied by his guide, passed once more through the outer doors of coral and up, 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 through the shadowy green water until it began to grow lighter and lighter. At last they emerged into the sunshine. And then, with one spring, they reached the top of the cliff, where the great black horse was waiting for them, quietly nibbling the green turf. When they left the water, their strange disguise dropped from them, and they were now, as they had been before, a plain seal catcher and a tall, well-dressed gentleman in riding clothes.
"Get up behind me,"
said the latter, as he swung himself onto his saddle. The seal catcher did as he was bid, taking tight hold of his companion's coat, for he remembered how nearly he had fallen off on his previous journey. And then it all happened as it had happened before. The bridle was shaken, the horse galloped off, and it was not long before the seal catcher found himself standing in safety before his own guarded gate. He held out his hand to say goodbye, but as he did so, the stranger pulled out a huge bag of gold and placed it in his hands.
"You have done your part of the bargain. We must do ours," he said. "Men shall never say that we took away an honest man's work without making reparation for it. And here is what we will keep you in comfort till your life's end."
Then he rode away, and when the astonished seal catcher carried the bag into his cottage and turned the gold out on the table, he found that what the stranger had said was true, and that he would be a rich man for the remainder of his days. The end. Did you like that one? I feel like other silky stories are a little sad, but I like that one. I feel like once he understood what he was doing, he was like, I kind of feel bad about this. I don't want to do it anymore. Did you like it? Mm-hmm. Are you getting tired? We can just sleep together. if you're up to it. I've already read you your little bedtime story. Getting sleepy. We can just cuddle together. Don't yawn. You're gonna make me tired too. I'm gonna catch your EP. I don't know if you can even hear my heart over all these layers. I think I've got like 5 different layers, to keep warm. You can try. I don't know if you'll hear anything. Too many layers. I